but it takes a long time for nature to legitimately work out the practical utility of a common language. For example, until 1 century ago, literary values were understood by style and ornamentation of language. But soon the Aquarian touch changed the concepts, and great literates like Bernard Shaw brought the revolution of giving out more valuable things in more simple language. And if now in the 20th century anyone believes that a good style in language is an asset, he is backward. If anyone believes that to have a good style in any language is a virtue, he will be backward, because the keynote of the century is simplification, direct rendering and abbreviation. So, symbolism comes more and more into existence, and there comes a time when numbers are used more frequently instead of words and sentences than now. And the attempts like the language of Esperanto, they give only a little push in the required evolution, and in the next century there will be a next step of rectification of the then existing defects in the method, and it takes about 5 or 6 centuries to have a language which popularizes the spiritual secrets of humanity. In the meanwhile, we have to encourage all such attempts and work as mediums of such attempts. But we should not be discouraged if the progress is not so speedy as we expect. That is my attitude. Anger. When anger is more distinct and clear than the names of planes, let us take notice of only the word anger and try to make proper rectifications instead of making a list of the planes. Because we are there, our anger is there, it forms our direct laboratory for experiment. It is better to tackle carefully with our anger than to try to understand it more technically. But if we want to locate the plane in which anger occurs, it is the lowest of all the higher planes, and the next immediate of the physical plane, which we call the etheric plane, the mental matter mixed with the etheric matter and working on the astral plane. Both lead to the path of the Devas. The first alternative, after some decisions and failures and some penalizations, because it involves some personal enthusiasm, whereas the second alternative directly leads us to the Deva kingdom, because we will be already doing the duties of the Devas while we are in the physical plane in that alternative. So, the second alternative is recommended as the better of the two by the masters. We have the physical, astral and mental planes as the planes of lower activity. Objectivity exists only in these 3 planes. You see. Therefore, the mind is essentially objective while existing in these 3 planes. And anger is a pressure applied to the astral matter, especially to the etheric layer, and when that pressure is felt by the mind, an idea is galvanized with anger. Left to itself, it is simply an idea. You see, when I am too angry, I say, where is the water? It simply means I want water. But the thought I want water is galvanized with the beast of astral matter. So, when we filter our intentions in anger away from what we call anger, they are only simple intentions which prove anger is not a necessity at all. So, it is only a wrong adjustment of the lower vehicles. So to say, when you begin to enter into the next buddhic plane or will, it is understood as a weakness, that is lack of management of forces. So, love belongs to the higher planes beginning with will. So to say, love never requires anger, but you can make an imitation of anger when you are a master of the higher planes, but it is not at all an anger. It is like the anger shown by a very efficient actor. Do you feel it correct if a drama actor should identify himself with the character on the stage or not? Pardon? If he gets identified with his character, he has no possibility of enacting the role. He does it in his own way, but not like the efficient actor. Similarly, the master can have a histrionic way of showing anger, whereas in fact it is no anger at all, and he never touches the emotional aspect of it, because his astral body is already burnt away. He is living without an astral body, but he can use the voice of an angry man or the face of an angry person, so that a boy can be put in right direction. If that were to be the case, it can be commended, because it is no anger at all. That has a place in love. Place in love. That has its own place in love. But if the emotional beast of a mother is thrashing her child and boasts that she has great affection for him, therefore she is angry with him, that is only behavior at the beastly levels. Oh, the whole story is a symbol. It is not a symbol of son or Joshua. So, better to arrange one separate lecture for the whole story to comment. It's not possible now. Question? To me, it's not an empty room. Because see, I told you the presence of the Lord is everywhere, in every one of these bodies. Listening to all that, if you say that the room is empty, I have to repeat the lecture. I know it.
Don't play anger.
Well, brothers and sisters who have gathered here, I thank the hosts of the evening for the kindness, love and sympathy you show for me, and Your yoga school is very much in contact with me for many times. I am much familiar with the center and the Yoga Muni and the other Munis who are here. And I thank you all for the happy presents you have given this evening. And if I remember well, this is the 9th time I am coming to this place. This is the 5th time for me to visit Europe, but it is the 9th time for me to visit your center and have the privilege of being amidst you for some time more. Today, I am asked to speak about Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The subject is very vast, but we can have a clear-cut idea of what Patanjali means about yoga and his instructions about yoga and what he prescribes by way of yoga practice and yoga living. Patanjali's specialty is, it is a self-sufficient science which he calls yoga. According to him, it is not a practice which should be made for 1 hour or 2 hours a day, but it is a practice into which our life and career should enter. And yoga is not something which fits in to a part of our life's routine. So, according to Patanjali, we can define that yoga is the science of life and the art of living, because his course of yoga includes every aspect of our life. So, let us try to enter into the subject and make as much justice as time permits. First, Patanjali gives his definition of the yoga science. It is to suspend the reaction of mind to the environment. He says that the environment is influencing the mind through 5 directions, and the 5 senses are being attacked by the environment simultaneously, and the mind is reacting in the form of the activity of the 5 senses, so that no one activity is conducted satisfactorily, and life is always a distraction and a distortion by the environment. We are doing what the environment is stimulating us and what the environment is prescribing for us as a program, and we have no time to have a program of ours. That is the restlessness we have in the name of life. And to stop this restlessness, there is only one method. We have to suspend the influence of environment upon the mind and senses. If we have a scientific method to suspend this activity, our mind can stand for a while without reacting to the environment. Instead of catering to the needs of the environment, the mind will be able to prescribe something for the environment. To the living being, the indweller of the mind, there will be some time to have his own plan, to meet the world and the environment in different terms and proceed in a practical and progressive way. This is the first proposition of Patanjali about the science of yoga. It can be better presented in a diagrammatic way, which I try to do it. We have the activity of the 5 senses working through us. The activity to see, this activity to hear, to smell, to taste and to touch, and impressions from environment are entering through our five senses and attacking the mind from five directions, and the result is the mind is having a very busy routine of the day. The day is spent very busily and the year is spent. Tens of years are spent like that, and finally the whole span is spent like that. The whole activity can be called a routine. Routine, having no positive motivation from ourselves. And while reacting to these five senses, the mind is existing in the form of the environment and not in the form of itself at all. When we are seeing light through the eye, the mind is taking the shape of the light, and it has no nature of its own. When we are listening through the ear, the mind is taking the shape of the sound and the word. It is not existing as itself. When we are tasting something, the mind is existing in the form of taste and not as itself. So, from morning to evening, we have only mind which is in the form of something or other and not its own form. So, we do not know how our mind is in its true nature. So, if we can suspend the influence of environment upon the mind for some time, the mind stops to be like light, like sound, like taste, like smell, and like touch. It can for a moment live as itself. And since we are living with the mind, we are identifying ourselves with the mind, and we can say that the mind is like a person stabbed from five directions at the same time. Stabbed from five. And when we call it I am, it is the suffering I am, and it is always on the receiving pole, receiving from the environment and reacting to the environment. It has nothing of its own. So, we can call it the negative I am or the slave of environment. Now, Patanjali says there is the real I am inside, with which we are expected to identify ourselves, and that real I am is light by nature. It is self-luminous. For example, we know that we are existing without anybody suggesting us. In that way, it is self-luminous, self-knowing and self-suggesting. But we have no time to listen what the real I am says. Now, Patanjali suggests us scientific methods so that we begin to live in our own positive center, and instead of being affected by the environment, we can shine through the activity of the five senses outside, so that the light sends five of its rays into the environment and purifies the environment. If every one of us does in the same way, life can be led in such a way that light meets light, because in the center everyone is the same light. But in the mind, everyone is different from the other, because everyone is affected by the environment in the mind. So, what is the process to be followed? First process, he says, you make a positive proposal that you should travel from your mind to your real self and grow aware of your own real existence and awaken as the real existence and begin to live as your real existence. This is called the positive proposal. He asks us to make a proposal for yourself and repeat the proposal as frequently as possible. Not repeating 15 minutes or half an hour or 1 hour a day in the name of meditation or yoga practice, but in the daily routine of yours, whatever you do, you propose this. Whatever you speak, you propose about this. And whatever you think, you make a proposal of this. Let every step of your daily routine in your daily life have this proposal repeated. So, whatever you do should be a repetition of this proposal. The proposal to grow into the awareness of your own real self. And this you have to do continuously and for a very, very long time. Continuously means all through the day. As long as you are not sleeping, you are expected to do it with every work. And for a very long time, he says, how long a time we have to do, we can ask. Until that question goes away from the mind is the answer. Because that question indicates that we are guilty of something, that we want to gain something from yoga practice, that we want to have some benefits through yoga practice. It is utterly false that you have any benefits through yoga practice. If anyone starts yoga practice in expectation of some benefits or some achievement or some powers, he will be utterly disappointed after some time, because he is following the wrong path. Then what for is yoga practice, you may ask? It is to live the best of your life, to experience the best of what you have to experience. Understand, nothing is more valuable than your existence. And if you can imagine something more valuable than your existence, and if you imagine that you can achieve something with your life, you will be disappointed. Yoga is not an achievement. Yoga is not an attainment. Yoga is an unfolding and realization. It is an accomplishment. It is living your life fully, happily, and with all the sweetness that is natural to your life. If you imagine that something is more valuable than this, you are deceived. The second thing Patanjali proposes is grow passive to curiosity. Grow passive to curiosity. That is, to any imaginative value you have in mind, you should grow passive. The questioning mind should grow passive. In order to grow passive to the environment, the sense of curiosity should be made passive. Curiosity to your money, your wealth and your possessions. Curiosity for good name and fame and importance. and attachment to relationships with persons, all these things should be made passive. It is called detachment or vairagya. Detachment is not leaving away persons and going into forests, but detachment is leaving your attachment with anything and everything. You can use money, but you should not have any curiosity about money. You can live with your wife or your husband, but your impressions and your glamour towards the other person should be made passive. You can be with your children, but the idea to possess children should grow passive. Understand that everything is the existence of God and there is nothing yours. And unless you grow passive to everything you call what I have, you can never reach the center what I am. You can say, I have money. Let it be there. It may be done some good use. I have a house. Let it be there. Somebody will be happy in it. I have wife. Let her be there to enjoy your presence. I have my children. Let them be there. They have their encouragement of your presence. Do not deny any one of those fellows about what they want. But at the same time, do not have any attachment towards any one of them. You can please them, but you should be pleased only with the inner center of everyone. You should be pleased without any condition and unconditionally. That is the second thing Patanjali prescribes. And then you are fit to try to go to your center. And then he says, you make a call to the Lord in the center. The positive I am who is in the center is the Lord who is living in you. Whereas the mind around is the slave who is living in you, the slave of environment. The inner fellow is the Lord of the whole kingdom of your life. If you identify yourself with the slave, you are living with a slave. You are living like a slave. If you identify yourself with the Lord lives and you are with him. And others